Welcome back to our channel 217 Prince White. The chapter begins. How dare you try to go easy on me? The enemy roars, face contorted in raw anger. Behind him, his guild rushes forward like wolves, blades drawn and eyes wild. Kill everyone, regardless of if they're from the Azura Guild or if it's that Asian kid. Cut them all down. From the side, Essel gasps in horror, her voice cracking with desperation. How dare you harm the young monarch? In that moment, Grey charges forward, responding to her fury, eyes blazing with primal instinct. The dust settles just long enough for the seasoned hunter to unsheath his weapon. I guess a fight is inevitable, he says calmly, a grin tugging at the corners of his lips, sword gleaming under the golden torchlight. Suho slowly pushes himself up, brushing the grit from his coat. The pressure in the air is suffocating, but he smiles weakly as he's approached. Gosh, young monarch, are you all right? Baru asked. Yeah, he replies, breath steadying, eyes already locked onto the next threat. Hunters clashed with fierce intent, steel against steel, power against power. Above the dust and noise, Suho's thoughts cut through the tension. Hunters are fighting amongst themselves? Then to complete the urgent quest, he'd have to win this scuffle too. There was no choice. That's just how this raid was going to play out. And the one who attacked him first, that guild, was an enemy. Without question, a powerful leap followed. Suho vaulted through the storm-colored sky like a shadow streaking across the horizon. His boots slammed against the temple walls with impossible grace as he repositioned himself high above, observing the chaos below. He launched downward like a thunderbolt, but an axe-wielding brute rose to meet him mid-fall. Suho's full force crashing against enemy. The collision knocked the enemy spiraling back, yet Suho twisted midair, landing on his feet. That's surprising, the enemy sneered, eyes narrowing with insulted fury. To think a weak hunter would dare go up against the Scavenger Guild, his voice snarled through the battle haze. You should have just listened to the words of the strong. He lunged forward in a blur of speed and fury. Suho's body remained steady, but his mind churned. He had tried to knock the man out with that earlier blow, yet he took it. He endured it. Just how tough were these bastards? Suho's gaze lifted. He thought quickly, thoughts sharpening to a blade's edge. What about the new combat method? What about the ruler's authority? His hand clenched, the air tensed. His next move was no longer hesitation. It was an execution. In his thought, a violent eruption of power detonates from the ground like a divine strike, splitting the earth in two. Blue-white energy spirals upward in a chaotic burst of destruction. Would he be able to use that on a person? The thought hangs heavy in his mind. His hands clench, his heart pounds. If he killed them by mistake, if this power spiraled out of control, then. But there's no time to hesitate. All of a sudden, one armored figure charges toward the enemy. The impact ripples outward, a massive blade carving through the air. A blur of crimson intercepts the strike. A cloaked warrior descends from above, slicing through the enemy in one fluid motion. The clash of metal screams across the battlefield, and Suho watches as bodies fall in his place. Blood paints the ground. One of the attackers collapses, groaning, his helmet cracked open. Suho catches his breath, stunned. Thank you. Hunters, eyes sharp and calm again, doesn't look away. I saw your skills when you dodged Randolph's attack. The man nods, but his gaze narrows on Suho's expression. That hesitation you had a moment ago. He speaks with firm resolve. Are you afraid of killing another person? Suho lowers his gaze, his breath ragged. Monsters aren't the only things dangerous to a hunter. You need to have the resolve to protect yourself, even against humans. Especially unofficial hunters like these. Suho listens in silence, the words sinking into him deeper than the strikes he had taken earlier. A flicker of conflict burns behind his eyes. Resolve. His mind drifts back to moments past, when he faced life-threatening battles with nothing but grit and desperation. He thought that was enough. Fighting with his life on the line, was that not enough? Until now, he hadn't needed to kill a person. Even during the fight with the Hyena Guild, he had held back. He was stronger than them. Overwhelmingly so. It had never been a fair fight. And because of that, he had never had to cross that line. Until now. But I won't always be in a situation where I have the upper hand. The quiet reflection echoes within Suho's heart, as dark memories flicker before him. A sweeping slash of a colossal axe floods the screen. Essel, terrified, narrowly ducks away from the arc of destruction. Behind her, another figure barrels into battle, chaos erupting across the scene. Suho's mind keeps racing. Or you are not being able to protect what you want. In this changed world, this broken world, such terrifying moments will keep coming. The Great Cataclysm hasn't just changed monsters and dungeons. It's changed humans too. I had missed that, as I only thought about leveling up. His glowing eyes pierce the dark, burning with a cold blue flame. He recalls the old feelings, the hesitation he clung to, the humanity he tried to preserve. I forgot that I have to throw away the feelings I had from before the Great Cataclysm. Only then will I be able to fight Li Min-song. From the depths of the reflection, a new voice cuts in. I'm a hunter from the Azura Guild. My name is Lu Xing. Suho turns toward the speaker, a man wielding twin swords, his presence emanating seasoned confidence. Dust whirls around them as tensions rise. We're in a bit of trouble because of the Scavenger Guild, Lu Xing says, leveling his blade across his shoulder. How about forming an alliance with us? Before Suho can even respond, a shift in his gaze erupts into action. The blue aura surges. No words, no hesitation. He vanishes from sight, an instant flash, and with devastating velocity, his glowing red gauntlet crashes down from above. Lu Xing's eyes widened in horror. Boom! Suho descends like a thunderbolt. The shockwave tears through the stone below as his strike connects with an enemy. Sparks and debris scatter in every direction. He lands with a thunderous impact, rolling off the momentum, gauntlet trailing crackling energy. His opponent is sent reeling back from the explosive force, and Suho, eyes glowing beneath his hood. A glowing system panel flickered into Suho's view. Skill, ruler's authority level. 2. The rules were clear. No mana needed. The user didn't need to touch the object physically, but fatigue depended on usage. This was no longer just a tactical choice. It was a declaration. Suho's eyes hardened beneath the crackling glow of power pulsing around his arms. Lightning arced through the air as he clenched his fists, his breath steady. The hesitation in his heart had burned away. I won't hesitate anymore. In a blur, the armored enemy crashes into the ground, body ricocheting across stone, limbs flailing, crushed into submission by the sheer weight of ruler's authority. Dust erupted behind him like an explosion. The tanker's body twitched, blood oozing from the corners of his mouth. One of the observing hunters stepped forward, eyes wide, brows furrowing in shock. He beat a B-rank tanker half dead with just one hit. And then, slowly, his lips curled into a smirk, his eyes gleaming with newfound interest. Interesting. Suho stepped forward, the glow still flickering faintly around his gauntlets. His voice was calm, resolute, and unwavering. I'm Suho from Korea. Let's form an alliance. The ground trembled beneath the feet of the massive warrior, his golden armor gleaming with a cruel glint as he hurled his axe in a savage arc. A whirlwind of violence followed its path, tearing up the battlefield as if nature itself recoiled from his presence. Dust and ash swirled violently in the air, announcing the chaos to come. But through that maelstrom of destruction, another figure charged in, a dark, hulking shadow with a colossal blade dragging through the rubble. The two forces collided like twin storms, and with a thunderous impact, shockwaves erupted outward. Debris soared into the sky. The battlefield cracked open beneath them as the sheer power of the blow shook the very air around them. Blades clashed and sparks danced as the Azura Guild's hunter team fought back to back. Their swords rang out against the armored foes pressing down on them. Each blow they struck was met with equal resistance. But it wasn't just them. Another hunter party had joined the fray, forming an alliance in the heat of battle. The Azura Guild is working with a different hunter party, came the stunned realization as steel met steel. Small fry sticking together are still small fry. We're stronger than them, and we outnumber them. Yet amidst the chaos, Suho turned to Lu Xing, his voice calm and unwavering. We haven't revealed our full strength yet, though. In the very next breath, the word fell from Suho's lips like an invocation. Arise. With that command, the battlefield darkened. Shadows thickened. And then, something monstrous stirred. Giant arachne, normal rank, but terrifying in form. Dozens of them emerged, crawling out of the gloom with their monstrous grins and gleaming eyes, each one a summon wrapped in glowing death. A nightmare born of shadow and command. To think, with his martial arts prowess, he was actually a summoner, Lu Xing whispered, a mix of awe and disbelief flickering across his face. And to have so many summons active all at once too. But Suho's eyes were fixed on the enemy line ahead. His fists clenched, his killing intent now fully awakened. All right, I'll be heading in now too. With a sudden surge, his summons tore into the enemy like a tidal wave of darkness. Blades drawn and fangs bared, they crashed through the armored ranks with devastating force, overwhelming them in a ferocious storm of teeth and steel. The real battle had just begun. The explosive clash of power surged outward like a tidal wave as Suho's summons tore through the battlefield. A streak of lightning laced with malevolence raced past, and in its wake, a monstrous figure appeared. Randolph, eyes gleaming, his laughter sharp and eager. His body launched forward through the smoke and flame, reveling in the chaos. "You've been hiding a lot, kid," he shouted, his voice laced with madness and bloodlust. "How fun." Meanwhile, Suho stood still, his mask catching the last golden rays of dusk. "Randolph." A familiar whisper reached him. Baru, concerned but composed. He may have become weaker after becoming a shadow soldier, but to defeat a monster like young monarch struggled with in a single blow. It truly seems as though that human is the strongest one in this place. A calm decision followed. Suho turned slightly. "Good timing, Gray. Let's use a bond skill." But before he could finish, the elf girl with the purple hair stepped forward, her expression brimming with eagerness. "Young monarch." She smiled slightly, a nervous flutter in her chest. "Just a moment, young monarch. How about using a bond skill with me this time? We learned a method to increase the charging rate while going around the gate." Suho glanced at her, quiet. "Using a skill I've never used in actual combat before is a bit." Her voice trembled, though not from fear. Anticipation surged through her veins. The chance to be useful, truly useful, to the one who had taken her in, was finally within reach. But before she could say more, a thunderous crash rocked the field. Her gaze snapped forward. Shadows swarmed the dust. A monstrous scream ripped through the air. She turned sharply, eyes wide. Something was coming. Then it began. A sea of red eyes flooded the far corridor. "Monsters are swarming." One of the hunters screamed in panic. Clawed hands, torn flesh, and rotten snarls spilled out of the passage like a living flood. The dead had awakened, drawn by the scent of battle and mana. "Did the noise of us fighting draw them here?" Another hunter shouted while trying to hold the line. But their numbers kept growing, overwhelming. "They're at the other entrance too," Essel cried, spear gripped tight as shadows surged toward every entrance. Surrounded on all sides, the hunters braced themselves. Undead monsters, rotting warriors bound by some unseen will, clashed against steel and spell. Their endless charge pressed harder by the second, numbers swelling like a cursed tide. One of the hunters narrowed his gaze as he cleaved through a wave of mummies. In that instant, clarity struck. The prophecy the boss had once whispered, he finally understood. The being that's born of death who broke the seal. A chilling memory from ancient texts surged in his mind. The one who possesses the power to raise the dead will appear in the grave, eyes widened. If the dead being raised referred to these endless mummies, then the being spoken of in the prophecy was real, and it was inside this tomb. The hunter clenched his fists. That power, the ability to command the dead, was precisely what his master sought. And yet, with rival guilds closing in and the battlefield descending into chaos, claiming that prize would no longer be easy. Still, to retreat now would be cowardice. He turned. The boss's orders were to take ownership of the dungeon, but with competition between guilds getting fierce here. But then, his gaze froze. Through the dust of battle, Suho stepped forward again, unshaken and relentless. Their eyes locked for a moment. Neither blinked. However, backing off at this point would be. Then the veteran hunter growled under his breath, gritting his teeth. The moment shattered with a cry. From within the battlefield, one of the hunters noticed the shift. "Scavenger Guild. All members, follow me." Their leader barked the command with urgency, rallying his team. Ignore the other hunters and head to the boss room. A rush of footsteps followed as the guild surged toward their objective, blades drawn, determination burning. But they were not alone. Another hunter caught their movement. The scavenger guild is heading into the dungeon. Stop them. The call rang out like a war drum, echoed by the desperate clash of weapons as bodies surged toward the passageway. But standing in their way, more undead, dozens of them, rose in a gruesome blockade. The narrow corridor leading to the boss room was now a river of death, and those who dared to cross it would drown in blood and bone. The weight of frustration tightened around their chests as the realization struck. The swarm wasn't random. The monsters were being used strategically, herded like living barricades. Are they trying to use the monsters to keep us busy? Lu Xing muttered, his eyes narrowing. The realization stung. The path just had to be that way too. The worst possible route, now completely overrun. Suho's voice cut through the tension, urgency rising in his throat. At this rate, the reward might be taken away from us too. The competition had shifted from tactical to desperate. A voice thundered in the chaos. Gray! From the shadows burst a wolf-like beast, monstrous and ravenous, its jaw stretched wide, snarling with feral intensity. Yellow eyes gleamed with deadly intent. Suho didn't flinch. He launched into motion, a cyclone of violence as claws, fists, and roars filled the air. Monstrous silhouettes surged forward. Undead, grotesque and twisted, were sent flying in every direction, crumpling under the force of his onslaught. The sound of bones cracking and limbs snapping echoed. Energy surged through the battlefield. Lu Xing's eyes wide in disbelief. In the center of it all, Suho, merged with the very power of his shadows, descended like judgment incarnate. The ground split beneath his steps, as if the earth itself recoiled. Let's quickly finish up here and chase after them, Suho declared with burning resolve, his presence amplified now by his fusion with Gray. Lu Xing, watching in stunned disbelief, couldn't contain his thoughts. He can summon them, and now merge with them too? Suho, just who are you? Meanwhile, down the hall, the darkness deepened. The air shifted with danger. A hidden chamber, lined with towering statues and carved with ancient glyphs, awaited. And from within, a massive form stirred. The undead armored warrior is knocked down by the hunter. In the center of chaos, Randolph stood still, eyes focused, heart steady. His eyes narrowed. That kid. Seems like there's more to him than meets the eye. A slow breath escaped his lips. I'd like to face him myself, after obtaining the power to raise the dead. A sharp gaze cut through the gloom. The leader of the scavenger guild narrowed his eyes as he approached a towering set of doors flanked by flames. The air grew heavier. He stepped forward cautiously, his men at his back, weapons drawn. Before them loomed a sealed chamber, the boss room. The ground trembled as they reached it. A low rumble stirred the dust at their feet. Then, with a heavy thud, the twin doors cracked open, darkness bleeding into the torchlight. From within the gloom, crimson eyes glinted. A chained figure slumped across the room, massive, grotesque, and breathing slow, shallow breaths. The hulking creature was restrained by thick, runed chains that shimmered faintly in the low firelight. That guy looks like the boss, one of the knights murmured, voice caught between awe and unease. Is it sleeping? Another added. The leader didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the slumped monster, brow furrowed in thought. The monster wasn't just restrained, it was dormant, held back, caged for a reason. Then his thoughts turned to the prophecy. The being born of death would appear after breaking the seal, he recalled grimly. But this monster is still chained. Before he could make sense of it, the beast's head twitched. A deep growl rolled from its chest. Then came a voice, inhuman and guttural, speaking in an unfamiliar tongue. The language was curse, grinding, yet undeniably sentient. Did it just speak? A stunned silence fell. Is the monster talking to us? They all froze as the massive jaw shifted again. The beast's mouth opened, and something more ominous began to rise with its breath. The beast trying to be free. The true awakening had only just begun. A voice, sharp and urgent, pierced through the tension. Everyone, get ready for battle. The command rang out as the ground trembled beneath their feet. The air, thick with dread, snapped in an instant as glowing red chains shattered with a thunderous roar. Sparks flew like meteors crashing from the sky, and the explosive force of the broken seal whipped across the room in violent gusts. The beast unleashed. Chains twisted violently through the air, coiling like serpents drunk on freedom. With a brutal crash, they hurled themselves forward, smashing, sweeping, carving through the armored ranks like paper. Bodies flew. Screams echoed. Chaos erupted. The chains recoiled and lashed again, breaking apart the defensive line in an instant. Craters littered the stone floor where they had slammed down. It was no longer a fight. It was carnage. And then, the hulking monster began its march forward. The air distorted with every thunderous step as the beast loomed over them. Randolph braced himself, his breath caught in his throat. "What is this?" he muttered, eyes fixed on the monstrosity before him. Their frontline tanks, battle-hardened and known for their durability, had been thrown like rag dolls in a single sweep of the chains. His heart pounded, his instincts screaming. The monster stood still, staring him down. Waiting. Provoking. Daring. Its body twisted slightly, almost deliberately exposing a weakness. The warrior hesitated. Is it telling me to attack it? He couldn't tell if it was bait, arrogance, or something far more terrifying. But beneath the surface of awe and confusion, something else bubbled up. Rage. All the shame. All the times he'd been underestimated. Looked down upon. Mocked. Each and every one of you, looking down on me. With a thunderous roar, he struck the ground with the butt of his weapon. Green light surged over him like armor forged of raw defiance. Skill, giant's armor. The transformation was instant. His body expanded with power, veins glowing beneath enchanted plates of steel. His axe swung into place, his muscles coiling like springs drawn tight. Eyes locked with the monster's. And then, with a war cry that shook the chamber, he lunged forward, giant and beast colliding with a blast of kinetic fury that cracked the stone beneath their feet. But the axe stopped cold. The monster didn't even flinch. A bead of sweat trailed down the warrior's face as realization dawned. The blow I put everything into didn't even make it budge. Randolph, breathing heavy, lowered his weapon. His voice trembled with regret. "I'm sorry, Master. I should have waited for you." Power swelled around the monster as he raised his chained arm once more. And then, an eruption. The ground cracked, dust and force exploding outward as the monster launched forward, a crimson shockwave blasting the chamber apart. Debris spiraled through the air as silence fell, broken only by the crunch of footsteps. The monster gazed up at the crumbling ceiling. Its victim, bloodied, mangled, lay lifeless in a heap at its feet. "Ah," the beast exhaled, amused as it turned its gaze toward the gaping hole in the wall left by its opponent. "To think the first living being that found me ended up breaking after I played with it for a bit." It stepped forward, the floor cracking underfoot. "Well, it's fine." A low growl vibrated through the scorched air as the towering monster rose, its massive claws flexing beside a mangled corpse. From behind the curtain of smoke and ruin, its deep voice rasped out in amusement. "It seems like there are still a few living beings left." The creature's twisted grin widened, glowing eyes flashing with wicked delight. "Let's have some fun." The real slaughter hadn't even begun. Under the blinding flash of relentless combat, Suho moves with grim resolve, launching himself toward a mummy soldier with bone-crushing force. The enemy shatters under his strike, but more swarms forward. The tide never slows. With every step, his frustration mounts. Blow after blow lands true, but the enemy replenishes faster than he can eliminate them. Suho's eyes flicker, assessing the battlefield as another wave rises before him. There's no end to them, he thinks grimly, his jaw clenched. But if overwhelming numbers were their advantage, then I'll just have to match them with something greater. He extends his hand and summons his authority. A dark aura pulses. Arise. But the familiar surge doesn't come. The system responds coldly. Old souls cannot be extracted. His brow tightens. I can't extract old souls. He clenches his corrupted red arm in frustration, realizing another limitation. I can't use it on demons either. There are more restrictions than I thought. Silence surrounds him for a moment, before the earth quakes. A massive force slams into the ground with enough pressure to throw dust and debris skyward. Suho spins toward the shockwave, and the fighters around him stumble backward, startled. From the cracked floor, a monstrous figure rises. Its coiled frame twists with armored chitin and glowing red eyes. An enormous centipede-like demon lurches from the depths, trailing destruction. A centipede monster. The realization spreads like fire. Damn it. We already have our hands full with the mummies. More chaos is about to unfold. And the true fight hasn't even begun. In a blinding frenzy of motion, the battlefield explodes into chaos as hunters rain down from above, swords drawn, striking at the towering centipede monsters with everything they have. Their blades slash through the air, but the creature's armored hides resist with bone-jarring resilience. One fighter is hurled across the cracked terrain, spinning midair before slamming back down. A streak of silver pierces the sky. With unwavering precision, Essel streaks down like a comet, her weapon drawn. She slams her attack into the earth with all her might, erupting the ground in a burst of energy. Dust and debris swirl as she readies her stance once more. She launches a flurry of strikes, her every movement laced with speed and rage. But the enemy doesn't falter. Her blows echo against hardened carapace, sending out sparks and forceful ripples, yet the centipede remains unfazed. Her breath grows heavier, frustration mounting. My attacks aren't working, she admits, jaw clenched. These things are tough. Amidst the chaos, another voice calls out, urgent and commanding. So, being overrun with monsters like this is bad. The realization cuts through the air. They're overwhelmed. One of the hunters, still fueled with frustration from the Scavenger Guild's recent theft of dungeon rights, considers their options. I'm plenty pissed at them, but I think we should retreat. The conclusion is hard, but clear. It looks like we should. Suho murmurs. An urgent quest window flashes before them. The dimensional crack must be resolved. Yet doubt lingers in Suho's gaze. It's not certain the Scavenger Guild would let me clear the quest. Is it really okay to back out like this? Then, thunder. A monstrous weight lands with a quake. Dust blasts outward. Everyone braces. A clawed behemoth crashes to the ground, its massive foot crushing the earth. Shock flashes in the hunter's eyes as the ground beneath them splits. A new enemy reveals itself through the dust and gloom. A cry erupts. That path is the one the Scavenger Guild took. The sight before them sends a shiver through the air. A new monster is coming out of there, Suho thinks. Maybe it was the stat increase. Maybe it was instinct sharpened like a blade. But the moment Suho locked eyes with the void in front of him, he felt it. An oppressive force, heavier than gravity, thrumming in the air like a war drum echoing from the depths of hell. His senses screamed in warning. The red glow pulsed violently in the shadows, revealing a monstrous, grotesque figure beyond comprehension. A malformed beast, cloaked in raw malice, surged forward, the air fracturing around its aura. It wasn't just powerful. It was a calamity, a walking, breathing disaster. The prisoner of the tomb, Ammut. Even his title carried the weight of death. That blood-red name above its head, it wasn't just for show. This monster wasn't like the others. This was a calamity unlike any other. And in a single breath, Ammut spoke. Disappear. The command didn't echo. It reverberated through the souls of those present like a divine edict. The mummified demons, once snarling and ravenous, halted mid-strike. Their eyes dulled. Their snarls faded. Then they turned and retreated as if the battlefield no longer belonged to them. The allied hunters gasped, their blades frozen in midair, eyes wide in disbelief. Essel stared, her gaze locked on the creature. That monster's voice, it told them to disappear? Confusion and awe warred on her face as the mummies obeyed that single word. The mummies are going back, just from hearing it? Her breath caught in her throat as the ground trembled again. The towering form of Ammut emerged in full, each step pressing the air flat with brute force. Her lips parted with dread. Just what is? A looming shadow fell over her, and she whirled around, blade ready. Essel. Suho's voice rang out across the sands, sharp with urgency. Ammut snapped, stunned. That thing, it spoke monster language. It understood me. Yes, I'm a demon. I speak that tongue. Essel nodded. Then Ammut laughed, deep and hoarse, his monstrous form looming, yet strangely composed. Huh. The only things I see every day are the dead. Those without thought. Those who just groan across the desert. His voice, though monstrous, carried traces of sentience, of loneliness. How long has it been, Ammut mused, since I've seen someone I could speak with? For a moment, Essel blinked. Huh. He seems friendlier than he looks. Suddenly, a massive centipede monster attacks on Essel. But before Essel could react, Ammut's arm moved, a blur of mass and violence. With a single blow, the towering centipede monster, one that had overwhelmed the entire group, was obliterated into the dust. Essel stood there, frozen. Her jaw dropped. He took the centipede monster down in one hit. The towering figure of the armored beast loomed above the battlefield, his colossal claws shredding the writhing mass of centipede monsters beneath him. With a voice like grinding stone, he growled, "Before we speak." He turned toward the next oncoming horde without hesitation. It seems I must clean up the monsters that don't understand when they're told to scram. In a single, fluid motion, he launched forward, crashing through the monsters that surged at him. Essel, still catching her breath, watched in stunned awe as he carved through their ranks like a storm incarnate. Shards of chitin and blood were flung into the air with every blow. With blinding speed, he drove his arm through a charging centipede's head, sending its limp body flying like a broken arrow. His presence alone distorted the battlefield, a crimson cyclone in the heart of chaos. From afar, Suho stared in disbelief. A monster is killing monsters? It was a contradiction too surreal to grasp. The beast's massive frame moved with purpose, tearing through creatures of his own kind, if he could even be counted among them. The red glowing eyes of the warrior flicked back, locking onto his next target. With a thunderous leap, he crashed into the centipede ranks, his fists smashing into the ground and sending shockwaves ripping through the earth. In his wake, corpses piled up like broken dolls. Then came the voice, guttural and deep. "I hate bugs." His fist slammed into another centipede's core, crushing it in a single strike. Black blood exploded across the field like ink splashed on canvas. From a distant ridge, the Azura Guild stood frozen in disbelief. A mountain of insectoid corpses littered the terrain between them and the monster. What is a monster that's strong enough to kill countless centipede monsters in the blink of an eye doing here? Lu Xing murmured, his voice shaking. He furrowed his brow. This field-type dungeon was definitely C to B rank according to the investigation. But what they were witnessing now was far beyond anything those rankings could have predicted. It seemed there were still more of them, more of the mindless, more of the dead, more who could not speak or understand. His towering figure stood motionless for a moment, red eyes simmering with the same deadly calm that preceded a storm. Then, he stepped forward, the ground cracking beneath his heel. A single word erupted from his throat, drenched in violence. "Die." The word struck with force, not just in sound, but in action. A blur of destruction hurtled toward the hunter. In a streak of silver light, Hunter dashed forward with his sword drawn, intercepting the attack with unflinching resolve. Sparks flew on contact, a furious shockwave ripping through the battlefield. Essel's eyes widened in alarm, caught between awe and fear. Suho didn't hesitate. He attacks with brutal force, sending the monster across the battlefield. The impact lit the air with golden energy. "Killing us just because we can't communicate. What's with your sense of values?" Yet the beast roared back, defiant. With his jagged fangs bared, he snarled in indignation. The towering monster looked down, and a dark realization shimmered in his eyes. "Oh, so there is a human capable of speaking with me." Smoke curled around his silhouette like tendrils of contempt. He sneered, voice heavy with mockery. "Values, you say?" His feet crushed the broken earth as he surged once more into motion. "I've never thought about them." With explosive force, he leapt again into the fray, closing the distance in a heartbeat. Then the impact. Suho crashes on the wall. The stone shattered. The monster reeled. But the clash had only just begun. A cry escapes from her lips, trembling with desperation. "Young monarch." Her voice slices through the haze of war as she stares in disbelief at the aftermath. Dust swirls around her, and the fading echoes of destruction ring like thunder in her chest. The flames of battle still dance in the air, but her focus narrows to the cloaked figure looming above the wreckage. "You bastard! How dare you do that to the young monarch?" she snarls, fury igniting behind her crimson eyes as she rushes forward. But the monster, titanic, calm, unshaken, merely cocks his head as if observing a curious insect. "Ah, was he your companion?" he asks, voice detached, yet tinged with sardonic interest. He begins to move again, each step a quiet earthquake. "It's not much of an apology," he continues, "but I won't kill you." As he descends from his perch of shadows and carnage, his gaze fixes firmly on her. "If you're a member of the demon race, then you should know quite a lot. It'd be nice if you'd relieve my curiosity." She tightens her grip around her weapon, wariness etched across her face. His next question slices through the tension like a cold wind. "Between the Shadow Monarch and the other monarchs, if it's over, who won?" Her eyes widened. A pulse of confusion and alarm runs through her veins. "That name? How does this creature know about the war? What's with this monster?" she thinks, lips parting slightly in disbelief. He knows about the war between the monarchs? But the towering figure does not wait. His voice carries again, ominous, slow, deliberate. "Do you not intend to answer?" Silence. "If so, then it can't be helped." From the mouth of a waiting beast, a dreadful tremor rumbles. Above, in the darkness of the chamber's ceiling, shadows peel away to reveal the raw hunger of another threat. Far below, the loyal soldier shouts helplessly from the rubble-strewn ground, panic in his voice. "Young monarch! Young monarch!" But it is too late. Her eyes are cold and burning all at once. Ammut continues. "Whether it be monsters that do not understand language or a demon that refuses to answer me, if we cannot converse, then you are all the same to me." The air shifts. Her aura surges. "Die!" From above, she dives down like a bolt of divine wrath, cutting through shadow and wind. The world tightens around her intent. On the other side, Suho groans faintly, barely conscious. A screen flashes before him, invisible to others. Acquire reward. Status recovery. And as the battlefield shudders with power, Suho rises again, bathed in a luminous green glow as a healing light floods his body. Green light burst from beneath Suho's feet as the effects of his untouched daily quest rewards surged through his body, healing and recharging him in an instant. Rising from the rubble with quiet composure, he looked at the towering figure before him. "Good thing I didn't touch my daily quest rewards." The energy still flowed around him, illuminating the broken battleground. His voice was calm but held a subtle edge as he continued. "If you're talking about the great war between the monarchs, then I've heard a thing or two about it." He raised his gaze, blue eyes glowing faintly with inner power and buried knowledge. "All the monarchs were killed," he continued, voice echoed. "At the hands of the Shadow Monarch, of course." The hulking beast's eyes narrowed in stunned recognition. His clawed hand slightly trembled. Behind him, Essel stiffened, her voice quivering. "Young monarch." The creature, though armored in menace, betrayed a flicker of doubt. "Is that the truth?" Suho's answer was firm. "That's right." His thoughts churned, suspicion blooming into clarity. If he's asking about the war between the monarchs, then he might be another monarch's kin. The realization hit hard, like a shiver crawling up his spine. That alligator monster's strength is at least S rank. Just ticking him off a bit would mean certain death. The creature stepped forward slowly, heavy footfalls cracking the ground beneath him. In the end, the Shadow Monarch won the war. His voice rumbled like distant thunder. If he killed all the monarchs. He trailed off, narrowing his burning eyes. Then that means Tarnak, the monarch of the Iron Body, has died by his hands as well. A shadow flickered across the beast's face, grief, awe, or dread. It was impossible to tell. But the battlefield no longer felt the same. The weight of history had returned, and Suho stood at the center of its rebirth. Chapter end here. For more, like, share, and subscribe.